The video that you're about to view is a series of interviews and photos. It's 85 years of history and memory shared by past and present Extension homemakers. So sit back and enjoy.
We will strive to promote a better way of life for all through fellowship, continuing education, and service, to provide guidance in our homes and communities by the uniting of people to make the world a better place in which to live. May we have pride in our role as homemakers and family and community educators, and may our hearts be filled with joy as we serve. Let us always be conscious of the needs of others and be strengthened by the divine light that guides us all.
– 2012 is the 85th anniversary of the Delaware Association for Family and Community Education. In 1917, the Home Economics Extension Service became formalized and was assigned to the extension system that was housed under the College of Agriculture. In 1927, the extension system hired a home demonstration agent in each county, and there were over 11 clubs established by the first year. The educational model changed to community-based clubs. Information was provided to members through educational workshops, newsletters, and informational bulletins. Members learned about home management, food preservation, clothing, home furnishings, nutrition, beautification of home and gardens, vegetable gardens, poultry, and cooperation.
Well, Cooperative Extension has always been, since it was established, has been an organization that provided all kinds of educational opportunities for all kinds of people. And in the beginning, the Extension Homemakers, as we now call them, were called home demonstration clubs. And they were established by the home demonstration agent, who is now the Extension home economist / family educator. And they were established because there was no other opportunity for women to get education or training in home skills. They didn't have television, they certainly didn't have community colleges. Very few organizations were providing education to the homemaker, the person staying at home. And not very many women were in the workplace at that time. Even during the wars, women who went off to do labor in the industries came back home and still had to do the canning, the preserving, the making of clothes, the caring for the children, managing the budgets. When all the men were off, the women were there to try to keep the family finances straight, managing the farm, being sure that the things that were needed to happen would happen. And they needed help. And that's where Extension came in. And you had your home demonstration agents who used to go home to home and take the educational message out to these women. Later, it became very intensive to try to do that much homework. So they started getting groups of young women together, and they became home demonstration clubs.
I read that there was going to be a program on how to organize your kitchen. And since my husband and I were constantly at odds about where things should be, and I would find them just all over the place, and I was a keep things together type person, And so anyhow, he was thrilled when I said that I was going to the university to take for a class on how to organize my kitchen. So I went. I came back home, and I called him to the kitchen door, and I said, "I'd like to show you all my changes." Well, he was smiling. He was so happy. And I reached down to where I had my cereals. At that time, it was a small house. I had just begun homemaking, and we did not have a pantry in the kitchen, so everything was in cupboards. And I reached down to where my cereals were located, and I picked up the oatmeal, and I took the oatmeal and I put it above the stove with my noodles, because you put that in water that would be right on the top of the stove. So it was the whole class was in putting things where you use them. And so anyhow, he just felt it was a total waste of my time. So in a few months later, I started a club out of my home, and it was the Versatile Homemakers. They had their first meeting in my house. I started it with a few of my friends.
And 1980, I was going through a change in my personal life, and I joined Lipstick Homemakers with my sister Doris, and which helped me through being a single person. And then in 1985, we started Felton Friends and met at my house.
I was a member of the Friendly Neighbors Club in Townsend, Delaware. And I was a member for about 16 years. And the memory I have the most is there were 3 generations of us in the club. My grandmother, Mamie Pinder, joined Friendly Neighbors in 1933. And then my mother was a member, and I can remember going to the meetings with her. And then when my son was about 4 years old, I guess my early 30s, is when I joined the Homemakers. And I used to take him to the meetings with me, and I learned a lot of things.
My mother, who was a graduate of Syracuse University, found herself in a different economic status, and the extensions that sprang up around that time used to bring the women together, and they would buy whole great big fish, and they would can the fish, and they would all go home with the jars that had been processed. And that was a great help, because they not only benefited from whatever it was they made, they learned how to cook and can and make things.
I'm just proud of the fact that my mother-in-law was was a co-founder of Coatwell's Club back in 1950, until it disbanded.
I've been in Coatwell's Homemakers Club since 1986 until they disbanded, maybe 5 years ago or more. And now the county still has a group still going, and I'm in that. I'm hanging in.
I've been with the FCE, or the Homemakers, for 38 years. I started out with my mother's club. She was in Townsend Club, but before that she was in Odessa Club for a number of years. Then Odessa disbanded, she went to Townsend, and I joined after my kids were born. So that's where I've been going.
My mother was president of the Hollymount Extension home demonstration club way back when, and I knew that she enjoyed going once a month to meet with other women to share ideas and to share canning and homemaking stuff. And I even remember one time she talked my sister and I into going to one of the meetings at Christmas time, and my sister played the piano and I sang Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And that was my first exposure to the club, and I'll never forget it.
I have been a member of Lipstick Homemakers now for 52 years. I also was with the different ones when in 1985 they started the Felton Friends Homemakers Club at Felton. And the Lipstick Homemakers is still meeting, but on their own, and I do meet with them once a month.
I actually started going to the Bear Club when I was a little girl. My mother joined, or started in the Bear Club in 1939, and I was born in 45, and she used to take me, and I would sit in a stool at her feet, and she would take food for me to eat so I would be quiet. And so I went to club for a long, long time. But I joined, after I retired, I joined the Bear Club in around 2000. And I've been with the Bear Club since.
I was a very young mother, moved to Delaware, 2 small children, and found these wonderful women in Ocean View area, and I was part of the Omar.
You told me the wrong name before I did the wrong name.
But I can remember how wonderful it was, because my mother wasn't living here in Delaware at that time, having these women help me and show me how to cook, raising children. I mean, it was just such a wonderful, wonderful, enriching time. It really was.
I joined about 2 years ago. My sister-in-law, Betsy, talked me into it.
I did have a grandmother and aunt who were in it in Maryland, and first one and then the other were presidents. And they did a lot of stuff like refinishing furniture, starting rose beds, painting, all kinds of really great things.
As women's roles and responsibilities change, so did the educational programs and community service projects. With each advance in our culture and knowledge, these women were interested in being part of the early adopters of information and technology and sought to share their knowledge and skill with others.
At the time when I was born, which was 1929, things weren't as popular then, education-wise, as they are today. Fewer things to draw from, like TV or even magazines, and newspapers were scarce. So I decided to join the Home Demonstration Club, which was called Hollymount. And most of those members were retired school teachers then, so that was a great asset too. I've learned so many things over the years through extension or home demonstration work. One of the first things I remember was the leader demonstrated how to make a cake from tomato soup. It was pretty good, and it was pretty color. And as I also learned, this was before clothes dryers. If you soaked your clothespins, the wooden clothespins, in salt water, they wouldn't freeze to the clothesline. That was a plus. So back then, new electric appliances were just coming out. Hand mixers, toasters, all of those. After World War II, those kinds of things became prominent. So as a home demonstration agent would come to the club meetings, she would bring us that type of educational thing and taught us how to use it. And otherwise, like our mothers, if we gave our mother a small appliance like that, what did she do? She never used it. So this way we learned how to use those kinds of things.
When we first started out in club work, it was home demonstration. And the agent came to the house, and I learned a great deal about being a mother and a housekeeper, because I didn't have any home economics in high school. I took the academic program, went to college, and then I got married and had a baby, and I needed to learn a lot of things. So I'm very thankful for the education that I got.
I can remember trainings that we conducted, and they weren't just a couple of hours or one day, they were weekends. And we would have 20 or 25 people participating, and they were people from various organizations. So I felt we did a wonderful job of outreach and helped other groups besides ourselves.
I remember learning to use a pressure cooker, which to me was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then we get into Delaware, and they're teaching all kinds of fancy things that I was glad to learn because I wasn't fancy when I come here. Now I'm real fancy.
As a young homemaker, the home demonstration clubs provided most of my entertainment and social life, and most of all, my best friends. I learned a lot. Everything that I learned as a homemaker came from the club. When I got married, I could make a green salad with a French dressing and bake a chocolate cake, and that was the extent of my homemaker's experience. So I learned a lot. I learned how to make hats. We made lampshades. We cooked internationally. I ran a program on first aid and babysitting for our local teenagers.
And had led them through developing their clubs and learning how to run their clubs. And then each club started to go off in their own tangent based on their own interests. I mean, they were still using extension materials, but in a different way.
From home demonstration to extension, education was primary.
The independence comes with knowledge.
It's been a great experience for me, and in that 60 years I've been state president 4 times and got to go to the national conference.
One in Alaska and one in Tennessee, and of course it was all new to me then in Alaska, and when we were there I was learning more about their culture, and that was interesting to me, that it was a completely different culture than what I'd been used to here.
The people that we met in other states, one of the most wonderful group were the people from Hawaii. They were just always fantastic. I still have at home little flowers that they have made. They used to always make sure they had all the plants thrown in, grown, brought in, and the pineapples. Well, the pineapples they used to bring. Yeah. And it was just the friendship that you made and the learning experience from meeting these people.
State Day is an annual event when all the members from all the counties and all the clubs come together for a day of fellowship and education. It rotates around the state. Each county hosts it each consecutive year, and the agenda usually consists of luncheon, educational programs, some fun, and always a fundraiser.
Hearthfire Series is a learning tool that comes from the national office, and they are presented in small booklets and pamphlets that are very easy to read and present. These series are presented each year to the club members through one of our programs during one of our meetings, and then the members can take that information and give it to their family, their community, or their friends.
I have to tell you a story about when I served on the national board. It was my first year, and it was an election year, a national election. So at one of our planning meetings, I suggested that we should produce a Hearthfire that would educate and encourage our members to get out there and vote and participate. I felt that was important. Well, the president at that time, she's a fine person and she puts a lot into FCE even now that she's retired from leadership, but she was a rather short person as far as replies, and she said to me, well, if you think that's what we should do, you better write it. So I did. I wrote a Hearthfire on lobbying, voting and lobbying, and I started it with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And it's still being used today every time election comes around.
Members of the Delaware Association for Family and Community Education have always given back, and community service is one of the ways they do it. From sharing the educational information that they learn through their educational programs with others that they know and other organizations that they belong to taking on projects that raise money or make things for other people. They have made a huge impact in the communities in which they live.
I've been chairman of the Ways and Means for a few years. We do this to raise money. We've done auction baskets, we've done silent auctions, we've done bag auctions, which is a bag that's closed up and you have no idea what's in it, but you just bid. And then we've done a bakeless bake, which is a good thing.
2 or 3 fundraisers every year, and all the money that we raise, we give to charity. We've helped fire victims and flood victims, and we at one time adopted a little girl. I put quotes around adoption on that, but we would give her gifts at Christmas and Easter and holidays. She was a very sick little girl.
We had a service project of baking birthday cakes for the boys' home in Claymont, which at that time Russell Fisk was the director, and he had was looking for people to come in as volunteers. And so that was kind of a nice thing, because the home was for boys who were maybe in danger of getting in trouble, and so they'd leave their families and go and stay at this home for a while.
They went up to Governor Bacon Health Center, and the kids had clothes up there that were torn or zippers were out, and they would take their sewing machines up there and they would stay the whole afternoon, take a lunch, stay the whole afternoon and sew the children's clothing. That's how they got them. That was their project. So they did that.
We have made, they used to make Afghans for people, and I remember doing in Vietnam. They were interested in what they could do to help there, and now they're still interested in what they can do to help the military.
I was secretary to M. Catherine Jones, who was the home demonstration agent at that time. And I was very fortunate to then work with the scholarship program that we dedicated to Miss Jones, a scholarship program in which we assisted young women, mainly. The young man is just a recent addition. Young women study in the home economics field. I must have been chair of that group for years and years and years.
I think it was this club that used to send stuff international and yarn and stuff like that for people and ladies that, you know, maybe never had the chance or the money to ever be able to do anything like that. And it was kind of interacting with women helping women and people helping people, and I think it's a great idea, and I am just proud to be part of that.
This little thing called family community leadership. And for those of you who may or may not have seen the box, if you will, it was a box. It was kind of a cardboard storage box. And in that box was about 15 folders. And each of the folders was a title. How do you work with groups? How do you run a meeting? How do you set an agenda? How do you talk to each other in a nice way? And then there's this little one called lobbying. And you know, I'm kind of looking at it going, this is a very dangerous instrument here. You know, you have to be very careful. But the homemakers took it and ran with it. And it came out of a national piece, and a lot of material came out of Oregon. But some folks will just blow it off. Oh, this is just a way to do this and a way to do that. Well, yeah, it is. And folks paid attention, and they did use it, and they did it well.
We had a group of very articulate women and some men who were willing
to take the training and then go out and be the educators in the community?
Well, one of the most exciting projects that I've worked on in my 50 years with FCE was the trying to get seatbelt legislation passed in Delaware. And primarily Mary Ann Finch and I worked on this together. We had support from the Delaware Office of Highway Safety, and there were probably a dozen other safety-oriented organizations in the state that worked with us. So we were able to borrow from somewhere, and I don't know where, a gigantic seatbelt which we wrapped around Legislative Hall in Dover. And we, of course, notified all the newspapers, and one beautiful fall day, we all descended on Legislative Hall, buckled up buckled the seatbelt around the building, and all the newspapers were there to record it. We tackled the legislators as they came and went to get the seatbelt law passed, and we got very effective publicity. We got the message out there to the state. Unfortunately, that was, I can't remember the exact year, but it was around the mid-'80s, and we did not get the legislation passed that year, which disappointed us. But fortunately, the message came across, and the following year, Delaware had seatbelt legislation on its books. So we were ultimately successful, but it was a hard job and a struggle, and we felt very good about having worked so hard on it.
When Peterson came in, we got involved there with Peterson and the cleaning up and keeping the oil company off of these beaches out here. And we worked pretty hard. We've done a lot of really important work.
We also lobbied to get the helicopter, the medical helicopter for the state of Delaware. A lot of these things people don't know, but it was through the homemakers, because at that time we had a rather good membership. It was over 1,000.
We had people in our club that were working on the county level, and they would bring information back to us. And of course we had speakers. Every month that we had a meeting, we had speakers. Sometimes it might be a member of the group as a speaker, but you know, we did. One memorable one that I remember, one meeting was so nice that we did exercise. And we all got out of our chairs and got up and did some exercise, which was nice. And so we kind of felt it was okay to eat the cake after that. You know?
I think if you go back and look at some of the records of it, there were some major changes that were brought about. Seatbelt was one of them, but there were others that were brought about because of the training that went on with these leaders. And it was in every county.
Anything that you belong to gives you a little bit more leadership, a little bit more experience, and a little bit more confidence in yourself, and you know, and a good feeling of helping your community.
I was active in television for children. I think I was state chair of that. And we worked with other educational groups to try to get more appropriate television for children. And I think we did a successful job.
We went around and asked people to sign our petition to help stop violence on TV, and we made people aware of it, that we were campaigning against it. And we got petitions. I think we had, at one time we had over 2,000 names on the petitions.
The university, you know, has a lot of potential and a lot of programs themselves, and education and opportunities. So, you know, I like to be a part where, you know, we can bring people in for these opportunities and learning experiences and training experiences to be helpful, like the finances and the environment and all of that stuff is very important to everybody, whether they're a member or not, you know, they do have to live in this environment and to, you know, learn how to deal with illnesses and diabetes or whatever, and keep their finances a little bit straight anyway. So I think the university has excellent programs to help that.
Being part of Extension has had a terrific impact on my life because I've belonged to many organizations and served in many functions over the years, but the continuity has been Extension for 52 years now. I stayed with that, and that's those are my roots, so let's put it that way. If you really want to know what the situation is, you go to Extension and you get the facts. And I think that's very important to the community, to the citizens of the nation, and to everyone. You need to have a source of credible information, and I think we get that from Extension.
I was in a nursing facility one time. I had foot surgery and I had to be in there for 3 months. So the Sunshine Committee comes to visit one day. And first one in line, I think, was Sylvia holding this bouquet of flowers out of someone's yard. Could have been mine, I don't know, I wasn't there. And they're singing happy birthday to me. Wasn't even my birthday. Anything for a laugh, that's how we are.
We were all each other's sounding block, and we were there for each other. It was really nice.
We had a wonderful group who did many, many things. We actually made quilts, which I never thought I'd do in my lifetime, but we did it. And when I moved, which was 28 years ago, from Newark to Flemington area in New Jersey, Jean Skibinski made this darling heart cross stitch for me, and I've always cherished it. I still have it.
I think I like people, so the friendships I've made over the years have been very important with Extension staff and also with members up and down the state.
We did activities, we made different projects and all, and fellowship was great, and then it was a night out too for the girls.
I know that my children have learned along with me, because whatever that I've learned, I've passed on, and I've passed on to my friends.
The women that I have been in this group with are just very special people. They're interested in helping other people, they're loving people, and they care about the next generation very much.
We'd like to acknowledge all the ladies who volunteered for this video. And a special thanks to Maria Pepitas, our Newcastle County Extension Director, and Ariel Taylor, the photographer-editor, for bringing this video together.